Good afternoon to everyone. My apologies, delegates, that we are delaying this delayed start of 10 minutes. We are having some technical issues with the Secretary's office, which we're trying to resolve. While he joins, I am Deepak Sood. I'm the Secretary General for ASSOCHAM. Thank you very much to join us this afternoon. I'm told we had more than 6,000 registrations and only 1,000 people would come in. My apologies to those 5,000 people. We are making arrangements for you to get recordings of this webinar and that you can listen to it a little later. This will be available on ASSOCHAM website. With this, let me welcome all the dignitaries, the delegates, and the speakers who are here with us. I'm sure when they come on camera, you will hear the names. We have from the business, from the education, undergraduation, we have schools, we have universities represented here who will be giving their perspective. And obviously, we're going to have Anurag Tripathi ji, the Secretary CBSE, joining us in a little while. The entire world has come to its knees, and let me just say this because I'm part of industry and I see this happening day in day out, how there's liquidity, the business of everybody has got hurt, and therefore everybody is impacted. And how could education not be? We have various ways and means of learning which we have been used to for generations. There's a teacher and we have physical books. Now we have digital books, but there is a physical interaction. There's a lot of digital content that takes place. There are a lot of classes that happen online, but I don't think most of India even deals with it. It's a very select part of India that deals with it. For this, you need broadband, mobile connection. You need hardware like a mobile, which is smart. You would need a laptop or a desktop at home. And how many of Indians would have access to something like this is a question in my mind. According to the survey of 2017-18 National Sample Survey on Education, it says that 24% of Indian households have internet facility. 15% of rural India has this connectivity, whereas 42% of urban people have this connectivity. Is this uniform across India? I don't think so. There are challenges Prashanti was mentioning, and I'm using this as an example. States like Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Assam, Bihar, and I can go on, do not have the similar levels of penetration of internet, or they all face, including me, like for example, I'm sitting in a fancy house which I built for myself, but the cell phone signals don't come inside. It's a bomb shelter that the builder developed for me. I am surviving because data comes in now. So Digital India played a major role, which the Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister, created for all of us. He's helping, but not to such an extent. If I may further take this, Mobile Association of becomes a major de factor for education for everybody that may come through. Teachers are not trained. Urban areas, big schools may have this, but most of the teachers are not trained, or trained but not accustomed to teaching online. And therefore, it becomes a difference. When you go across the world, people have opened schools, people have not opened schools. They have opened and then they have shut. They have their own reasons. India has a joint family system. We have our dadi, nanis who are sitting at home and kids can be taken. But there's a lot of world out there who doesn't have this, and therefore children have to go to the daycares, have to go to school. So countries in Europe, UK, US are contemplating how to open schools. UK is actually doing that and trying to do this. We are under consultation with the state governments as to when and how we will open our schools. NCRT and everybody has brought out their regulation as to what should be in a school, whether it is physical, hostel, or a rural area schools. But these are under discussions, and approvals have yet to be sought from family welfare, from the MHA, and all will depend, keeping in mind that the health of our children, our teachers, people who work in education institutions, whether it is a bus driver, a conductor, to a gardener, to a attendant in a school, everybody's health is extremely, extremely important. Given the truncation of the time that we are talking about, the number of hours, the social distancing in classes, 10 people in a class or 15 people in a class, I don't think it's enough infrastructure for us to get all our children in our schools. So how are we going to deal with syllabus? These are some questions that come to my mind. There are certainly external factors. Now, when I see industry, I see a lot of job losses. I'm seeing a lot of pay cuts. What is happening? These parents are carrying this sentiment back home. So how are the children dealing with this stress? People are not paying school fee. I've seen that 50% drop in collection of school fee has taken place across the board. Now, how does a school take care of its infrastructure where 70% of the cost of the fee that they recover is cost of salaries? Now, here is a family which has a problem of income, and there is an industry, which is education, which has a problem of paying people. So it's so much interconnected, and there are problems all across. 12 crore midday meals have just stopped. Government has given food to people to be fed at various places, but these are some very, very startling things that hit me and hurt me, and I kind of wonder how do we get answers to this. ASSOCHAM and Primus have come through a survey which I will not talk about now, maybe if I get a chance later, I will speak about it. But what is really happening is that the industry, the way of our life, everything is coming through a reset. And it is not going to be the same way that we were used to. And definitely not the industry, not the way I function, not the way you function. We've never had these many meetings online. And it's become just a new normal. In about 60 to 90 days, all of us have learned to live in a different way. We have learned how to consume and produce in a very different way. And therefore, I'm sure education and educationists would also find answers to these questions. And as we go along, I look forward to, from this panel, which is the initial panel, and then a discussion with principals as to what is it that we should do to ensure that our children are educated and we do not miss any of their importance, the physical connect or the digital connect. Thank you so much, and over to you, Prashantji, to take it forward.
Thank you, Deepak-ji. A warm welcome to all the panelists here, and Deepak Sood-ji and SOCHM, who have always been supporting the cause of education. I think Deepak-ji has started with raising many such pertinent points in terms of how we should look at education in our country, whether the examples that we see across the world are the ones to look at, the challenges that are unique to us, maybe in terms of the issue related to the fees and the aspect related to the challenge that the families are facing. Because if I look at other countries, maybe if we look at West, then you normally see that the tuitions are being funded by the government, and there is a different model altogether. And we have also seen maybe countries like Sweden I can refer to, which haven't stopped school for a single day. They have their own reasons, they have their own views on what should be the approach towards education and what is the purpose of education, and that's what has driven their decisions. And Deepak-ji also mentioned about some countries opening up the schools and then eventually they had to shut down because of certain reasons. Even we were discussing with our fellow panelist who's there today from China, and he was mentioning that from March onwards they were able to start the schools. And I think yesterday night itself we heard the news that Beijing is now shutting the school. So we've seen all kinds of things happening in the environment, and that has been a concern everywhere also. If we talk about our stakeholders, our parents, we keep hearing their challenges and their concerns with respect to their parents, issues with when they go to their workplace, or the young kids who have to experience a new way of learning, which they feel is just a part of learning what they expect the school to give. Because obviously when you talk about a school, it's just not about an academic delivery of things, it's about life skills, it's about holistic learning, it's about social engagement, it's about the peer learning also. So I think all those things have been discussed, and this whole last 3 odd months that we have seen, I would say that education as a whole has seen a change that was unparalleled. Maybe we can say that this was a time when certain things got implemented which you wouldn't have expected to happen in decades maybe, and that's what I think we keep hearing, that the time comes when certain things happen that way. And I think one thing that has been good, that we can say that education, like people in the field, they were all well-meaning, and they adapted to this change and they took it as an opportunity rather than a challenge. And that's the reason you see that most of them have been able to ensure academic delivery, academic continuity, and it was quite seamless. Obviously, Deepak-ji also mentioned regarding the digital divide, and the digital divide exists in our country. When you go to different places, there is a challenge with the resources, with the internet connectivity, and how the support can come to people who have limited means. So I think all those challenges we have been facing, but if you really look at what is the other way, this is the only way to look at. This is a time that technology, we have been talking about technology being a big enabler, and it should really be the big driver. But I think we have seen it come in support at this moment, and all these things around flipped classroom, interactivity, gamification, we've seen all those things getting implemented, and teachers have adapted to a big change. And we were discussing with Neena ji, and she was mentioning that now is the time that she's been working 17, 18 hours a day. So that's the kind of effort the leaders or the teachers are putting in. So I think what effectively is needed is for us to understand and appreciate the challenge, and the people who are there, who are taking care of the kids, whether it is the teachers or the management or the heads of the schools, everybody is receptive to the challenge that is there in the environment, and they all are having a very positive view towards any issues that are coming up as of now. Now, if we talk about a big question, like what is it that we look at in future, like that's the topic that we have picked up today, when, how, and where, like what should be the way forward. I think if we can have a focused discussion, and I request all the panelists to share their views on the way forward, because maybe the traditional way of teaching that was going is not the way that we might have to go. Social distancing norms and the challenges with respect to a limitation of infrastructure will remain when we have to have smaller group sizes or we have to work in shifts. So I think in that regard, maybe we can understand the models that are prevalent in the environment. There are some like countries which have developed some scientific models. I think one I would like to mention here is Israel. I think that is really one scientific model that they have come up with, where a set of students come in for maybe a 4-day a week in a particular week, and next week they don't come to the school. So the purpose is that when they come to a school for 4 days, and if there's a possibility of some infections of some challenge the kid might have faced or the staff might have faced, so there is a like different group that comes a particular week, and then they take a break for next week, and then they come again. So with that, they have been ensuring maybe a week, 10 days of difference in the students again or coming in, or the staff again coming into the school, and ensuring that a bit of challenge that we always discuss, whether there is a possibility of catching infections, and how do we regulate that. So I think that is one good scientific model that they have come up with. So maybe if you talk about in the current situation, all the stakeholders are averse to opening up the schools for sure now, till the time the curve gets flattened, or we really come to a situation where we are comfortable about sending our own kids to the school. But whenever we plan it, I think we should look at scientific models across the world, and then think about the right way forward for us. I think one challenge even I would say that we are facing, since education is a concurrent subject, every state is coming up with their own views and own policies and own decisions. I think that is also one thing where I feel the government can intervene. And if CBSE as a national board can come up with some standard protocols and standard policies towards various initiatives, whether it is online, because we have seen different states having a different view towards online education for the younger kids. We keep hearing some comments from the even the parents also, that for the younger kid, how good it is to really follow that up. So I think we should have different models emerging for different age groups. I think if I can just mention one model of Norway, which I think is implemented in early years or in primary, where the learning happens through projects that the students are given in when they are at home. So I think the way they ensure the learning is by giving them projects which are linked to whatever activities they are doing at their home, whether it is cooking, whether it is gardening, or whatever. So in the end, the learning outcome is what a student is expected to present, and the way their model is, they don't expect it to come, the younger kid to come more than 2 days a week to school, and they are able to manage it at home only by giving home assignments or by giving them some projects which are linked to your home exercises. So I think these kind of models are there, which we should be looking at. We should be understanding what best practices are there across the world, and coming up with a scientific thought process for the restart whenever it happens. And I think considering the size of the country we are, we would face a different magnitude of challenge, and we will have a unique challenge that is true to our country, and we have to come up with something which is very local, very contextualized to our own perspective and our own requirement. That what I would like to add here. And we have different speakers who come from different countries also. I think we'll be hearing their views, and once we understand different perspectives, then maybe the government should come up with some standard direction for everyone to follow. That's what I would like to say. And once again, thank everyone who's joined here, and the panelists who are there. My co-chairs, Kanwar Shekharji is there, and Vineet Gupta, who's the co-chair of SHM National Education Council, and the other speakers. And I really hope that this discussion will be a meaningful one, and we would get the desired outcome that we have been talking about. Thank you.
So Prashantji, what I'll do is I will for a moment, for some time, replace Neeraj, because he is coordinating with Ashishji's office, so Anurag's office. So very quickly, what you're saying is extremely important. What Sweden has done, Norway has done, but we'll have to keep in mind we are a $2,500 per capita income country, and we are comparing ourselves with a country model which is $50,000 to $60,000 per capita. So there would be a difference, and I'm coming from the standpoint of when I'm looking at industry, funding for industry, gaps there. So we need to be just factually keeping that in our mind. I would like to also bring a point over here, which I'm sure the school principals would also see, is that there are a lot of transfer cases during this period of time. A lot of parents have moved. One parent has moved, the child is not moved. So these are very, very many tricky situations that schools are grappling with right now. I think the standard policy and guidelines from the center should be done and would be done. However, local conditions would deter these, and therefore, getting a very uniform thing to happen across India may be a while away. But I think it's a great idea that we get a uniform understanding from the government, whether it is family and health, welfare and health, and MHA, to give it to the guide to the states, and CBSE walking in with the curriculums that you're talking about. There's just another thing which I thought I will flag here also, which you mentioned about, is the ecosystem of Indian households. If both parents are working and kids have to stay home and work, study 2 days in school, there will be problems at home. We have extreme climates, and therefore, and there are support mechanisms in the urban areas which have suddenly vanished, and therefore there are a lot of issues which people keep talking about to me. So there are rural problems, there are urban poor problems, and then urban affluent problems. So these are not uniform in so and say, and therefore they all would need separate answers as we go along. May I now request co-chair of ASSOCHAM Education, Kumar Shekhar Vijendraji, to share with us his views. Have to unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, I'm audible. Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Sood. And this topic or this question, when we ask for that when and how and where the schools should be reopened, this is one of the most sensitive question in political and social arena today. Municipalities, they will decide what to do. So partially schools are open there, and many of the places it is not. But in India, we have seen in lockdown also, when it was a national policy, everything was locked. And when they decided that it should be on the states, So suddenly every state was having their own formulas. But in education, we cannot do it. So now what I personally believe, that with all the limitations what we have, with all the social issues what we have, what we can do, one, that the course curriculum needs to be reviewed, at least for coming years. Because the complete curriculum, what we were teaching, it was focused on classroom teaching, because pedagogy will change now. If technology's intervention has to be there, with an understanding that technology limitations are also there, because digital divide will be there in the country. So we have to find, as Prashant, again I'm mentioning him, he was telling that in primary sections in many countries, they are working on projects, assignments, activities. Maybe the same way we have to go. So when I was talking, it was curriculum to nurture integrity, spirituality, skills, social efficacy, nationalism, culture, literacy. These are all points which came to me from different people around. One interesting thing, which I do not know in other countries it is happening or not, but in India, from the very first day of lockdown started, we should not pay. Because the moment we talk about how, when we should be opening schools, we have to see that sustainability of these schools, these infrastructure, the staff, those who are involved there, it has to be there. So that a national policy has to come, because infrastructure will remain there, people will remain there. We are already suffering with one crisis how we should educate our children in these crisis time, without putting a mental pressure on them, without putting a physical challenge for them, without creating a social crisis. But the same way, we have to see that we have more than 15-20 lakh in schools. So what we have to do with their employees also, the infrastructure, the investment which is there. So both the way things are there, and as I mentioned in my opening note, then this is one of the most sensitive political decision which governments have to take. And I am sure that our government, they are going slow. We are feeling sometimes they are going slow, but they are working on that. And we will have a solution. Maybe that blended mode will work. More projects, assignments will be there. But Deepakji, you mentioned that where husband and wife both are working, both parents are working, that crisis will remain there. We cannot change it much. Maybe it will help us to make our nuclear families more joint families. It may be a silver line on that. But these things need to be seen. And one important challenge and big challenge what is coming here is we have to teach our teachers also. Except a very limited percentage of schools, our teachers are neither equipped nor trained. And that training part, if we leave it on the schools itself, then we will fail. It means we have to have a policy where government has to come and a training has to be there. Because this technology-based pedagogy we are talking, we may be privileged schools or universities. But if we go to other schools, we see this is one of the biggest challenge. Then many states like Karnataka, they are telling no, primary school children, they should not have any online class. So it means not only digital divide, digital learning also has a divide now. So it needs to be addressed. It will take time to develop course curriculum. It will take time to develop facilities, books, modules, assignments. It needs time. And as Dr. Prashant very rightly mentioned, we have to study, in spite of the fact India is a country which is completely different from many other countries, what we are talking about, but we have to learn from them. I always believe many times, instead of trying yourself and do some half-cooked innovation, it is good to copy. If somebody is doing good, technically good, scientifically good, we should learn from them. So that learning should happen. And I'm sure today also in this panel, we have people from schools also, from different countries also. They will not share not only the concerns what we are sharing. Like for me, it was a shock when somebody said, we want the schools to be open. And they were the people, those who are from the lower state of the society. They are CBSE schools. Because meal will be there. Midday meal will be there. At least my child will have one meal. So it means there are so many challenges which me, you, and many of us may not be considering at all. Technology, blended learning, completely changed course curriculum. We are working on career-based teaching or thinking or learning. Rest we are working on learning where self-grooming, skilling is there. Those things are required. But if somebody asks when we should do it, honestly, at least I'm not having an answer. In universities, we know that we have started already the new sessions. We are working with our senior students because technology was there. This digital divide was not there in many of the universities. But in schools, that is there, that will remain there, and the mindset of our parents, for them, safety, health is first, then school. Even people, they suggested me that government should declare a gap year and assignments should be there, other projects should be there, socially grooming should be there, which we are missing otherwise also. So this is what I have to say, Deepakji, for this moment. And looking forward to listen to all the panelists. Thank you very much.
So,
Yes.
thank you very much. I'm now going to hand it over to Neeraj. Neeraj, you may like to run the program the way you had planned, please.
Yes, definitely. So
Thank you so
we
much.
are having trouble with the we are having trouble with the CBSE office, some technical issues. So I mean, he's not able to join, but we are working with him, so he'll be able to join in anytime soon. So meanwhile, we have with us Miss Divya Lal. I would request Ms. Divya Lal to please share her thoughts with us. Actually, see, this typically, traditionally, the CBSE starts the new sessions in April, and sometime in mid-May, the students enjoy their summer vacations, and then this new sessions then again, starts in July, and like that. Some states have some different, schedule, but typically the standard is this. So now, what is your opinion in this? Because now, because of this COVID, this entire schedule has been disturbed, and the students, the kids, they are enjoying their holidays, their vacations since April, and our schools are closed since March. So, what is your opinion on this? What do you think from this angle? Over to you, Divya.
Thank you, Neeraj ji, and thank you to all the participants and the esteemed panel. I think one, I wanted Neeraj ji the option to share my screen so that I could show. I think Anup is working on that.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and I think yes, thank you. 40 minutes. So that is important, that how to use the live session. I see a lot of parents who say, Divya, I mean, all the time the child is on the device. Now the classes are also on the device all the time. How much do you feel? And that is why I think interaction is critical. Using that platform properly is important. The second piece obviously is you need to have learning material, okay? And online learning also lends itself naturally to self-paced learning. So one of the things that we focused a lot at FlipLearn is give high quality material to teachers and to students. We don't have to trust the teachers. They're anyways under so much pressure to create stuff. There is a lot of high quality stuff that's available. And on our platform, they can create their own thing. If they don't like the stuff that's given, they can add anything. You love Khan Academy link, you can add that. You can embed anything that's available. But the idea is we need to give them tools where there is ready-made stuff and they could create their own stuff. And secondly, and very important, I see so much of one-way communication happening in terms of, I sent a video, I sent a module, I sent a homework, etc. Now, what happens to that feedback? When a child attempts something, a score is not the only feedback. So do your systems that you are providing, are they allowing a teacher to give a specific feedback to a specific segment of performance? Like I focused on saying building an interface where if a child achieves 50%, he may get a remedial assignment, which the teacher decides. But a child gets the 85% and above, he may get to the next learning element. So using technology with judicious could be a very big key in actually leveraging the benefit. What you cannot do physically in a class of 40 children, you can do many such things online. You can reach out to every learner. You can reach out, you can create groups differently and send them stuff differently, and systems are there that automatically check. Today, I'm so privileged that more than 10,000 educators on FlipLearn every day in the last 45 days are getting all their assignments auto-checked. And it's not just objective, including subjective questions. There's a lot of work that has happened, in terms of completely enabling solution approach. We need to understand what are children, who are we dealing with? What is this generation? I now feel when I have discussions, they say, Divya, till now there was a lockdown, parents were at home, device was available. Now parents are going off at work. Now what will happen? And that is why this whole running timetable schedules needs to be moderated. And that is why the phygital system needs to come in. We allow a 24/7 space when it's online. The child can learn even in the evening. There are so many of us who were students who used to learn better at night. We used to always revise at night. We used to make our notes at night. There are biorhythms that are involved. We can have all that privilege today using technology and edtech solutions that work. So my thought is very simple. When you're looking at a solution, you have to look at these four things. The solution should work on any device. So for example, for us, very simple thing is it can work on a phone, a laptop, a desktop with internet. It can work on any kind of platforms that are there, Android, Apple, websites. It should work any time of the day, whenever the child may get access. It should work at any place. And the key part of bandwidth, it should work. I mean, if in your network you can receive WhatsApps, then it should work. It should be something that should work across all our stakeholders, the parent, the teacher, the management. It should be able to bind all of them. You can create great transparency, great bond across the community. It should do everything, not only learning, not only assessment, but a personalized journey. We can look at an environment where we can actually create a personal path for every child today and keeping the child at heart at all points of time. I think there are brilliant solutions available today. People who are trying to blend this whole phygital model, evolve it along with the teachers, the educators, the school owners. Today in the last, I think 60 days, I've seen 100 plus schools get on board with us with more than 2 lakh students. Anyways, we have more than 37 lakh students on the FlipLearn platform. And we are seeing some phenomenal work that's happening by teachers, because my idea is simple. It's not about limiting people to our content or our interface. It's about liberating them to use and run it the way they want. But again, like I said, you don't have to create cinema halls just because we've embedded live teaching. You need to use that time for personal connect and for personal peace. So I think my simple and humble view is these are evolving times. Every change is painful. Things are going to evolve, and not many of us have any kind of a precedence on this that we know what to do next. No one solution is the answer. Various solutions should be tried. For example, the part that I'm talking to you, you may say this may apply to a larger private schools, but what about government schools? Majority of India studies with limited capabilities in the socioeconomic strata. So for that, you can see we're working with, looking at working with TV channels. All the governments, state governments have started beaming. So there are various ways and various solutions that are emerging. I think we are all parts of a jigsaw puzzle, and we have to stay solution oriented to keep doing what we can do in our space. Okay. And enabling. What we are doing today may not be perfect, but we will evolve it, and we will evolve it together. And I think that spirit that we have shown in the last 60 days, 70 days, is the spirit that we need to nurture more and find ways. We are not there yet, but I think, like I said, this all is going to evolve. For example, there are people who say that, what will happen when the schools open? Will all the online learning just go away? I said, you're talking to a generation that pretty much plays on digital fundamentally. And why do you want your teachers to ever go back into correcting everything manually when a large part, 90% of that correction systems can do? There are so many parts and pains that it can take care of. So you may look at blended models of adoption that are there. But like I said, you don't have an absolute answer. We're a developing country. Our models are different than a lot of countries that we've talked about in the morning. And our challenges are different. Our diversity is very different. Our ability to approach. So I think we need to work with various types of solutions, things that we can do, we can leverage. And the more the merrier. The more partners in this journey will only make it better and better into involving things that will work in various segments for us. Thank you so much for your time. And it was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, Divyaji, for this wonderful presentation. We are really blessed to have you with us today. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Aisha Siddiqui. She's from UAE. Anu, please, yeah. Dr. Aisha Siddiqui is the director and principal of Dubai National School, Dubai, UAE. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us for this wonderful
already has reduced hours, not only for students as compared to other countries in the world where children go for 6 to 8 to 12, 16 hours also. Don't forget, in India, we have a huge trend of coaching. You have day schools, you have residential schools, you have, there's a huge race of scoring ranks. And that's why these day schools, they were running for 18 to 16 hours, not only their regular schooling, after school activities, but also coaching in important subjects like maths and sciences. However, I mean, we see Finland doing tremendously well with their reduced hours. So probably now is the time we will have to think about reducing our school hours. It's not always quantity. I think it's the quality that we should be focusing on. I think for me as a leader personally, that is one of the things that I'm trying to blend in. Reducing the number of hours, the students' contact time. I think we've got the time. So now children will have access to virtual classrooms where they have at their own pace. It is more personalized. They have their own pace. They have lots of resources at hand. They have not just lot. I think it's a plethora of resources that they have hand they can use from. There's a lot of self-learning happening, and by reducing the contact time, I think the children should be still able to perform well. Finland has also reduced working hours for its personnel. So I think that is another area that I've looked into when I was looking at how we are going to reopen schools, if at all we reopen in September. Three things. One is finance, the other is infrastructure, the third is human resource. I'll start with the human resource first, because human resource is such an important and integral part of effectively running any institution, any organization. And thank you. There was an echo. And when I talk about human resource, I think I'm talking about the not only the teachers, but also the non-teaching, every stakeholder that is there. And starting with the major stakeholders, the educational stakeholders, that is educational leadership. I think now is the time, and I'm requesting this esteemed platform like ASSOCHAM to start thinking of not just, I agree with Divya on that one, not just having just webinars. I think now is the time to start some virtual workshops to support each other. There should be workshops for leadership. There should be workshops for teachers. There should be workshops for even parents. I think we have to take this opportunity. Earlier, when calling in parents was such a humongous task, was such a challenge to have parents coming in for parent-teacher meetings, we could have virtual workshops for parents on parenting, how to deal with this pandemic, how to deal with the challenge that children, the emotional setback that children are facing. I think although our children might not be showing it, but definitely the sudden closure of the schools has given a huge setback to them. So probably that is another area that we should be looking at very seriously, having those free workshops, roping in people from various industries who can support the teacher fraternity, the parents, and also the educational leadership. I think right now is the time where the educational leadership, like never before, they will have to rise up to this challenge, and they will have to see how they can maintain their operational capacity during and after the closure. Once the schools reopen, we will have to ensure that we are able to provide continuous support. Now, when I'm talking about these things, these are things which I'm talking about from my plan that we're doing. And when I talk about continuous teacher support, I'm talking about number one, protecting teachers. I think I've been very closely watching the news in India, and the teacher community has been facing a very bad kind of an onslaught or a backlash, I should say, in terms of the kind of comments, because now they are more exposed. Parents are able to see them on camera, what they're teaching, how they're teaching, and therefore they are being not only trolled online, but there's a lot of stuff that being saying, including reducing salaries. Now, one of the first things that I did was not to have salaries reduced. In fact, I have released a bonus package for my teachers, because I feel my teachers, like never before, they rose up to the occasion, and they have done their utmost best in ensuring that children are learning, that learning is sustained. I think something from government has to happen. Government is busy right now in India. I've seen, I'm sorry, with due respect, in electoral campaigns, which should not be happening. Sorry. I think that budget, that finance should be released to schools. As I said, number one is finance for any organization. Similarly, for any state or country, a major part of the budget has to be given to, alongside healthcare, it should now currently go into education. Schools need support. Teachers do not definitely need salaries to be reduced. I think their salaries have to be. We need to see in a way where we are compensating them for their efforts. And this is the time where I'm not doing any performance management for my teachers. We have decided for next 6 months, there are not going to be any performance management or any performance management appraisals for our teachers. Because I think we are now seeing a very steep learning curve. And in this learning curve, we are all together. and we have to give that due respite even to teachers. So I think for those 6 months, probably we could do without assessing how effectively and how well teachers are doing. I think these 6 months. Thank you so much. I think my time's up. Thank you very much. I think, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Aisha ji. So it was a wonderful experience you have shared with us. And the best thing is that you are encouraging your teachers, because they are working really hard during this hard time, and they are engaging their students, the kids, with the school, which is the most important thing, I must say, at this time, to keep the students attached with their school. This is the most important thing which everybody should focus on, and you are wonderfully doing this. This is really appreciable. Thank you so much. Now we have with us Anurag Tripathi ji. So luckily, after many technical issues, we have resolved to get him in for this webinar. Anurag ji will be available on audio. He's not available on video because of technical issues. Anurag ji is the Secretary, Central Board of Secondary Education, and is the key person who is driving all the things there. So we are lucky enough to have him today with us. Anurag ji, can you listen to us? Please unmute yourself. Yeah, Anurag ji, Anup, can you help him?
Anurag sir, can you please unmute yourself?
Anurag ji, can you listen? Or let me check. Anurag ji, can you listen to us? So let me work out Anurag ji's availability. Meanwhile, we have with us Miss Nina Kaul. So right now we have listened to the speaker from UAE. Now we have a wonderful speaker from India. She is Director and Principal of Heritage Experiential Learning School from Gurgaon. So, ma'am, our question to you is, what is the role of educators in maintaining the physical, social, and emotional well-being of children? So, right now, as Aisha ji has told us that she is able to connect the students with their school. So, I mean, your question is very relevant to where she stopped. So, over to you, Nina ji.
Nina ji, you're not audible. Can you unmute?
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of this forum, though I missed some of the important piece of information which was lent by the other speakers. However, picking from where Siddhika ji left, these are very testing times, and we all understand the impact of the pandemic and the kind of uncertainty it has created around life, sustainability, leading to a lot of anxiety amongst all. I will not get into the details of it, but I would really like to talk from the perspective of an educator about the practices which will enable physical, social, and emotional well-being of children. Now, it's true that, these are difficult times and parents are responding back in different ways. We don't have the fee coming in. Parents are upset about, why the virtual learning started. But I believe are issues which will come up whenever there is any kind of crisis. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes.
You are audible. Please.
Yes, Nina, you are audible. I would request all people to be mute, please.
Yeah. So, I understand the amount and the kind of reactions that one might get, which is very in the given kind of situation. Whenever there's going to be a crisis, there are going to be reactions. But I personally believe that every adversity is an opportunity for something new, for something in creation, and whatever God holds holds well in its destiny for each and every person on this earth. Having said that, the schools, you'll all agree with me, are the fundamental place, to build human connect, relationship, and provide experiences to children for their entire life. It's a place, where you provide that love, care, and nurture. And the sheer proximity of school community getting together lends a lot into the relationship. And this relationship, strengthening of relationships, leads to the building in the relevance and the rigor in education. If our physical emotional well-being is not in place, I think there's going to be serious problems. And given the kind of scenario we are in, I'm sure it's going to give rise to a lot of trouble, which we all are aware of. In the current scenario, we cannot have that kind of proximity or the physical closeness in the school as it was in the earlier scenario. But I don't think at any point of time, learning, love, care, and nurture can stop, or this challenge can stop educators across the world from doing what is their primary role of, ensuring the well-being of the children. I have seen in the last 3 months how teachers have stood up on these occasions and how they've risen up to overnight change things, learn so much at such a fast pace, and then implement and then exhibit beautiful smiling faces as they get into the new session. And this came in when absolutely for CBSE schools, it was just new for teachers to get in with new set of children, not knowing their parents, not knowing the children, but yet braving the situation by entering into their homes and making themselves vulnerable was a great attempt. When it comes to children given in these situations, it's very important. I hear parents often saying that our children have lost dreams, they don't get up, they just get up from the bed and they go in front of the screen. It's very important that we follow routines. It's as important for adults and more so important for children who are in their formative years. How do we ensure that through our small practices that we may have, what kind of dialogue do we bring in our day-to-day classrooms where teachers are talking to the children about routines? How can we create small things like routine charts where children are coming and they're sharing about their daily routines, bringing that joy and connection, even if it is virtually? And I've seen in last 3 months how it has shaped up from zero connect to no connect, from parents getting angry with the virtual learning, and now parents appreciating what has happened in the last 3 months. I feel these are very important steps under all circumstances as educators we need to take. Now, sitting at home, often, I'm sure all of us, it impacts everybody, and we tend to eat more, we tend to eat unhealthy, we tend to binge on junk food and beverages, which is very true for these young children also. So, if our teachers, they just at least for twice in a week, if having the community lunch with the children, even if it is virtually, is important, building that connection by all means through repetitions, through one reason or the other, to connect with children and have those joyful moments is very, very important. Asking children to have their water bottles put next to their study tables, ensuring that teachers give, the break during the sessions and remind them of having water, does a wonderful job with the children. And I think children really take to these things easily when it is done in a soft, subtle manner and reminded subtly from time to time. In fact, the timetables which have to be created, they have to be done in a manner that it really allows a 10 minutes break to the children where they can take their routine time out, they can take their mind and eyes off the screen. It can be a time for them to to get into some kind of other meaningful engagement. So maybe this is the time when we have our sports and music teachers and the other art teachers coming in these 10 minutes, helping them to do some of the exercises with neck, eyes, playing soulful music, having fun with children, jumping around. I think this actually, we've seen, though it started with a lot of discomfort, but over the last 3 months, you've seen how it has melted the ice and how children have become very comfortable in doing some of these things. It's important for teachers, to ensure that at this point of time, they're very vigilant about the fact that the children's well-being is there, they're active, and be mindful and notice the withdrawal symptoms or any other issue that the child may have. So that vigilance is extremely important. And the involving children, other than, because we have shortened, parents, genuinely had this feedback to say that, the children are sticking on to the screen time for long hours. So we felt that, okay, let's divide the time between 2 slots, and dividing that time, putting for academic, which is, embedded and alternated with these tiny 10 minutes of activity, made a difference. And in the evenings, involving children to a lot of creative work in streams like art, music, theater, even in terms of giving them, having reflective discourses, or having student-led concerts have really been helpful. And we see at least our children looking forward to these musical concerts where they are the ones to create, and they are the ones to present, and they are the ones to ensure that it is on the social media. It's completely driven by children, and hence they find a lot of reasons to engage meaningfully. And we can't help but be virtual. But at least if we allow them to socialize with their friends in the meaningful manner, it will allow a meaningful engagement not only with their friends but also with the technology itself. It's a fact that even when children are in the school, they still spend a lot of time on phones, mobiles, and on social media. But if that's used constructively for a meaningful engagement, I think that has made a difference. In fact, I know some of the parents mentioning that, earlier my child used to be too much on other things, but now I see him bored and, done with what you do. And then the child is engaged in meaningful activities in the evening. They love it. It has become a package which has, actually taken their attention away from the video games and other things like that. I've heard parents saying that in the meetings that we have with them. So the other aspect of, I'm talking from the functional aspect of what the school can do, because these things are very close to my heart. And we very strongly believe that come what may, it is a noble profession, which I really did not understand as a young girl. But today, when I look back, I understand why it is noble. Because as teachers, we stand out as warriors in the forefront, ensuring that learning at all levels cannot stop for children. Hence, also looking at the pedagogy which is deployed in the classroom needs to create ample opportunity for children to work in crews, to collaborate, co-construct learning. And I'm sure now the technology also is very supportive of getting children into the breaking into groups for doing collaborative work, and then coming back to co-construct the discussion with the teacher in the classroom. So going synchronous and asynchronous, creates a lot of capacity to create engaging classrooms, which otherwise in a direct didactic approach will not help. So creating recreational time for children, encouraging them to read books, sharing book reviews. Things like what have worked are like playing treasure hunt with the stories, where different parts of the stories are with different children, and they have to discuss, deliberate, get in touch with children, find the different pieces, build the story, present the story, have creating evening clubs for children, parents, where they can join for story sessions, coming together as community of teachers, parents and children, for musical evenings. The simple chit chats really were really appreciated by parents. And we know, and I'm repeatedly saying, these efforts which started from complete rejection to complete appreciation of by the parents of how the teachers have worked around this time and risen up to ensure and build that connect with the children. Now, giving some tasks which are meant, which can be done at home in collaboration with the family members. So for example, helping the children to work with the grandfather and talk about a project or an expression of my grandfather's story, which can be just engaging with the grandfather, getting to know his life story, creating a timeline around his life story, bringing that back, those stories in various forms of expressions which are very close to children. And trust me, they are so creative. If they are not compelled with the constant burden of learning and completing the syllabus at this point of time, very strongly, it should not be just the content coverage which should be important. It should be well-being of the children. There are 200 ways of how children can learn, and it cannot just get restricted to few, these sessions which may just come in from, the delivery of what the teachers might do. Takes a lot of effort, but I think it has served all the effort that has been taken so far. Last of all, I would also want to talk about the well-being of the children in terms of their emotional well-being. As in a normal school also, when we practice mindfulness, it's helpful. And now that we are going through the virtual sessions, it's also important to bring the mindful practice to the children. Say, for example, a simple common practice by the Buddhists, ringing of the bell at the starting of the day, is something that really helps children to get their attention, focus on here and now. They may not understand. For small kids, they may not even understand what's here and now. But the sheer fact that they are closing their eyes and they're allowing their reflexes to listen to that sound and enjoying that sound, we've seen it brings about a tremendous change. Wherever it's been a regular practice, it was very easy for our children to adapt on the virtual platform also. But I can also guarantee that wherever it has not been a practice in a regular school, after a little bit of hesitation initially, we've seen our children getting into the practice. I've had friends who've spoken about it, that these practices really make a difference in the classroom. A minute of deep breathing between every session or after, starting off every virtual session, that has made a tremendous impact on how children have responded to the virtual learning during the class. And I have children who've really spoken about it, that the level of concentration, that 1 minute of breathing, whoever tried that, even if it was 10 students who tried that very seriously, are students who spoke of the benefits. So our endeavor, I understand a lot of things might seem very difficult at this stage, but our endeavor as educators just can't stop from doing what we really need to do, and keep that connect alive even through the virtual system. As I said earlier, also I mentioned that for teachers to be extremely vigilant about the signs or symptoms of withdrawal or disinterest or disengagement in children, especially the teenagers, having a lot of empathy, positive relationship is of prime importance and should be of prime importance to us at this point of time. Having spoken about all these small practices, I can go on and talk of 10 more things, but looking at the paucity of time, I would still say it is important to acknowledge that in doing all this, in shifting gears and getting onto technology and making themselves vulnerable, and to the children and to their homes and parents with so many reactions coming from everywhere, yet it's remarkable to see how our teachers have switched into those gears and how well they've done. I think it has made them all the more confident and very sure of themselves. And when leaderships acknowledge that and give that pat on the back of a teacher, I think it really boosts the morale of the teacher. So having those sessions throughout, time to time, having those sessions with the teachers, I think last 3 months we've had almost 10 to 12 sessions with teachers talking about their well-being, of how are they feeling. We know they have, or some of them will say, I don't have, I have 3 kids, I don't have a laptop, how will they study? And they don't have domestic help. Just the sheer conversation and getting together and sharing the, the challenges, the joys and sorrows makes all the difference for the well-being of the teachers. Getting a lot of sessions, for our children, for parents, and for teachers, extremely important. Because of the virtual platform, cyberbullying is going to increase. So children will show signs of bullying one another. But in those moments of time, helping children to see what is their limit, how can this platform get misused, what should be the parents' role in that. Extremely important to have the experts coming in and building this kind of, Hello. So am I audible?
Yes, you
Hello.
are.
Okay.
Yes,
So
yes.
having constant, communication, having constant communication with children, with parents, whether it is on one-on-one sessions, whether it was small group meetings, or even having coffee sessions with the parents, have been extremely helpful in maintaining that connect. The surveys which we have conducted, you get a parent's perspective, and they feel that it's very important that they are being taken along. And there, sometimes all a parent in his anger may only want to be heard, but hearing the parent out in that moment is good enough for a parent. And we have experienced that, and we've seen our parents getting into a U-turn from where they started to where they are today. I think it's that connection and communication which we need to constantly endeavor to build, even through the virtual platform, whatever it takes from us. Having our counselors ready, having a 24-hour dedicated helpline available for children, teachers, parents, in case of this important. I will only like to conclude. Let's keep the spirit on as educators, even if we are challenged by the situation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Neena ji. Thank you so much. It was, a wonderful aspect of, student things. Now we have another speaker from China. He's Mr. Moses Oriko. He has some, Mr. Moses, can you speak? I think he has some trouble with audio. So Moses,
Say something. Hello.
Moses, can you speak?
Can you hear me?
We can hear. We can hear.
Yes,
Hello?
yes, we can hear you. Yes, we
Hello?
can hear
Hello?
you. Please speak. Yeah. Please speak. Yeah.
Hello? You can hear me, right?
Speak.
can
We
hear
can
you.
hear you. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear.
Please speak.
Kindly start.
We can hear you.
Hello?
Yes.
You can hear me? Oh, okay. Oh, okay, okay. That's good. That's good. Is it by time or no?
Yeah, it's your time.
Hello? Is it my time to speak?
Yeah. Start. Start.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very sorry for joining late. It was technical hitches, but finally I'm here. I'm calling, or I'm talking from China, and you have my credentials there. I don't want to go through that. I'm from Kenya originally. I'm the principal here in China. At the moment, we are open, and I'm in school now. You can see from the background. I just want to talk a little bit about our experience in the opening up of the schools here in China. You all know that Chinese schools are largely open, except some universities and colleges due to crowded lectures. But for primary schools, secondary schools, they're all open. But unfortunately, we had spikes in Beijing that has really taken some schools back to lockdown again. And hopefully, maybe this situation will not continue for a long time.